Hello everyone and welcome back. So in this video I'm going to talk about codes and standards and what makes a code and what makes a standard a standard. You don't really learn much about them in university, and once you start working in industry you always hear people using these words, sometimes interchangeably, and sometimes people use them and they don't understand the difference. However, there is. So let's first start with standards. Standards is the set of technical definitions, guidelines, and how-to instructions, basically. And you can think about them as they form a common language that defines the quality, performance, and safety. In terms of pressure relief valves, then they would be what defines the performance, safety, and quality of a pressure relief valve that should be installed in a system. Examples could be the API, which is the American Petroleum Institute. So they've released recommended practices, which basically is a standard that gives you the instructions on how you should go about sizing pressure relief valves, for instance, so that they align well within the ASME code. Now, why are standards important? Well, standards establish engineering and technical requirements for products, practices, methods, or operations. And they build confidence into the user when they are working with products that have followed a particular standard. Usually when products are standardized, then you have lower cost of production, because if you speak to a manufacturer, then they have a line of valves that already follow this particular standard. And when a standard is adopted then by a regulatory body, so when it's adopted by the government or included in a business contract, then it becomes code. So usually if you have the government adopting a standard, then it becomes a code. And that is like the ASME codes, especially for the pressure vessels and boilers, because as I've alluded to earlier at the beginning of this course, a lot of people have died because of explosions on boilers, and because of that, now we have the ASME standard that was adopted by the government and now is enforceable by law. So a code is typically a standard that has been adopted by a regulatory body and therefore is enforceable by law. Standards, by the way, are voluntarily. So you would want to follow standards because they are best practices, because they give confidence to the user, and because it sets the bar for what engineering products or products in general should follow if you want them to be out in the market. Code, however, is when a standard is enforceable by law, so that means it has been adopted by the government. Now, examples of it could be the ASME boiler and pressure vessel code. And you also have the British system, and you have the DIN pressure relief system. And so there are many examples of that. Now, why codes are required? Because they provide rules specifying the minimum acceptable level of safety and quality for manufactured, fabricated, or constructed objects. So if you, for instance, purchase a pressure relief valve that follows the ASME code, and it has the ASME stamp, then that shows that this valve reaches the relieving capacity at the overpressure accepted by the code. Now, that doesn't stop you from adding instrumentation or other methods to make your system inherently safer, but if you want to follow the code, as minimum, you must have a pressure relief valve on a vessel that follows a particular set of criteria, which we will cover, by the way. Also, codes can have standards, so there could be some standards that explain and go into more details how to achieve the code. So for instance, you have the API standard. The API standard regarding pressure relief valves, they give you the how-to instructions, they show you the sizing equations, they give you a lot of information so that you could ensure that you're following the ASME code. So you're going to find a lot of these standards and codes, they're complementary to each other.